Good morning, future crypto millionaires and also soy boys, as we get into today's video looking at some Ethereum Bitcoin action, also Bitcoin dominance in total 3. And the real question is it altcoin season, I guess, is always a question, I suppose, that I do see around the old crypto sphere. So I wanted to come at today from what I think is probably the most important charts for kind of deciphering that just in general. And other than that, we'll look at a little bit of Bitcoin at the very end as well. And of course, I would like to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. It's a nice little Wednesday morning, and let's just jump right into this one. So first things first, we'll start it off right on over here with Ethereum Bitcoin. A couple of very interesting things have actually happened on some higher term timeframes in the past 5 days now. And with the past 5-day closure, the past 5-day period, we did see the first buy signal fire off on Ethereum Bitcoin pairing, which I do believe is a pretty good representation of the general altcoin market. Maybe not all altcoins, of course, the more strong ones, especially the ones that were born in 2023, have been kind of taking the reins and being certainly the market leaders for the altcoin sector. But Ethereum Bitcoin, I do think, kind of represents the general altcoin sphere. And this is the first buy signal that we've seen here, basically since the rally that was beginning in July of 2022, where Ethereum Bitcoin pair from the actual buy signal to the next major high did produce about a 30% move. Before that, we've seen several of these, of which they have all actually gotten continuation from that initial signal to varying degrees. In some cases, a humongous move. In some cases, not that interesting. I mean, this one over here is not super interesting, although that is still nearly a 20% move to the upside. So in this case, we are in the first period after confirmation of this, which, if we were to look at that and kind of just take, 20% as a bit of a low end, or, presumably a low end, that would actually put Ethereum Bitcoin pair back around 7 million Satoshis, even if it was just 15% move, which I think is still kind of pretty decent. That would put Ethereum Bitcoin pair at about 6.8 million Satoshis. And again, that would be, I believe the weakest ones that we've seen. All major runs have actually been preceded by this particular setup right here. And this is also not just going to be relevant for the 5-day time frame, but if we go ahead and reference the prime oscillator, which I actually almost never speak about on this channel, just because I like my tools better, but I do believe that there's something new going on right here, as we do see a change in behavior from the highs put in from May of 2021, which is where I believe Ethereum Bitcoin pair first got into this, major distributive region. And then again, connected with this area right here. In fact, I'll actually just put in some vertical lines. So we'll go on this one right here, boom, that high, and then this one right here, and then connected with this high right here. We did see divergence on all of these particular signals with this oscillator, but with this past 5-day period, we have actually seen an official change in behavior from this perspective. So I do look at that as relevant. This is obviously on a weekly time frame, actually. So sorry, I should say weekly period. This one was a 5-day time frame right here, and so that does warrant, I think, major consideration for Ethereum Bitcoin to reference the thumbnail, the nice little clickbait thumbnail of this video, as indicative of a major probably macro bottom. I do think that Ethereum Bitcoin pair is probably done going to the downside. Doesn't mean that it can't, play out some short-term downside moves. Definitely possible. In fact, in some cases, maybe even probable, as we'll go over soon enough. But in the long term, it does look like Ethereum Bitcoin, I shouldn't say just Ethereum, is bottoming out here versus Bitcoin. And of course, right here on the weekly time frame, just kind of referencing what we spoke about in yesterday's live stream, there are a few major things of interest. One, weekly bullish divergence in the 5-day. Also had 1, 2, 3 drives of bullish divergence, I should also add. And on top of that, that isn't within the context of low volatility, and the weekly jewel is getting its first, major upside signal since July of 2022. Not as good of this particular signal over here is actually going to be considered better than that July 2022 one. And I'm trying to find some that's comparable to what we're seeing right now. And actually, I guess the most comparable one would actually be January of 2020. Let's see what happened during that time. I think kind of got the reversal from this particular segment. Where is it? There we go. Yeah, it actually got the reversal off the lows on the weekly high or low. And since then, Ethereum's never actually gone lower. So in this case right here, weekly jewel, getting that upside signature supported by DMI, and also bouncing off the slower moving oscillator, all within a low volatility environment. Yes, this first move somewhere around that green 55 exponential moving average probably does get pushed back. Might even come back down and retest 5.7 million Satoshis. But ultimately, I'd feel very I think you can generally say that if you've very likely seen the Ethereum Bitcoin bottom, and the invalidation for this would be with the weekly closure or even a 5-day closure below 5.7 million satoshis. Below there, okay, this is all wrong, and Ethereum Bitcoin, is probably going to come back down and retest lows, maybe make new lows, but until that happens, I do believe that a little bit of basing right here, maybe a bit of a short-term pullback is completely fine, but ultimately this one does travel upwards and onwards from this particular region. Also on the very high term timeframes, the bi-monthly timeframe right here, we do see hidden bullish divergence potential. Obviously, this is not going to confirm this month because, well, the bi-monthly is not closing this month; it's closing at the end of February. But assuming that we do see any sort of a closure above 5.8 million satoshis, which is pretty close to that 5.7 million failure point that I just outlined earlier, yeah, that will be confirmed, and I'd generally be looking for a move at minimum back above 7 million satoshis, probably back around these highs that we did see in this overall consolidation. So that is one of the major things that we've been looking at for the long term, just kind of relative to alts, because again, this one does do a pretty damn good job of representing that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to go fucking moon mode today or tomorrow. Again, these are very high term time frame charts. They take a long time to play out, but ultimately basing here above 5.7 or 5.8 million satoshis, depending upon your time frame, is going to be indicative of a long-term, probably macro bottom. And might, like I said, might not get moving this quarter and maybe even next quarter, but second half of 2024, that's when things probably do get a little more interesting, let's say. Anyways, this would be a good point for me to say that if you find this content valuable or in any way useful, or if you don't as well, please do consider liking, subscribing, blah, 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 blah. It actually does help out the YouTube channel quite a fair bit. And since I've started saying that, I've actually been tracking it since the past week. I don't know if you give a fuck about this, but I'm going to tell you anyways. In the past week, since I started saying that, this channel's actually seen the most growth that it's seen in quite some time. So quite interesting right there. All right, sweet. So we've gone through that. So that's the big one for today. Of course, we can go ahead and check out Bitcoin dominance. Or actually, let's go to Ethereum really quickly here. Ethereum chart is actually pretty simple in the sense that, short term, could we see a pullback down, just below 2,400? Completely fine. But as long as Ethereum is especially above 2,400, 2350 on a daily closing basis, again, this one very likely does have one more push to the upside. But when I do say one more push to the upside, I would be very cognizant that, that probably comes alongside a Bitcoin bounce, as we outlined yesterday. A Bitcoin bounce very likely before an ultimate breakdown. But after that bounce, I do think that things probably turn around relatively fast. But maybe that's a topic we can discuss in like a couple weeks when it's probably more relevant. Anyways, moving on from there, I do want to reference Bitcoin dominance chart. It's everyone's favorite chart as well. I don't think it's really all that useful. I mean, it is useful, but it's not useful. You know what I mean? No, you don't know what I mean, because it's a fucking nonsensical statement. Apparently, we have this massive wick to the downside right there. I'm guessing that's just a bad print from TradingView, but there are a few interesting things right here. This chart's been moving fucking slow like molasses and pretty damn boring, to be quite honest with you, since we got to this 54% region right here, which is where we did outline long term, where they're very likely, if there is going to be a reversal, that would be a damn good area. So it's not just the green 55, but it's also the 50% level, like right there, from the ultimate high to the ultimate low of this current cycle. And well, this is also going to be accompanied by assuming that this month of January closes anywhere below 51%, there will be hidden bearish divergence from this particular high just below that 54% level, and basically any high that we did see in 2020 or 2019 for that matter, when Bitcoin dominance was trading significantly higher at 70%. So, this is, like I said, this has been a pretty fucking long running chart now, but ultimately, I would still say that 54% probably is that next major high. I'm not saying that I can't go higher, maybe later on in 2024, but it does look like this is a good place for a, probably a long-term stopping point, which, if you're looking at Bitcoin dominance as relevant, that would be indicative, again, of a bit of an altcoin season, perhaps. But I really don't think it's going to work like that, to be honest with you. I do think what we're going to see is we're going to see the stronger altcoins like completely outperform, especially the newer 2023 ones that are, you know, maybe even legitimate. And that's going to really carry it, that, or at least carry that calculation for the majority of altcoins, especially the ones that were not born in 2023. It's probably not going to do too well versus Bitcoin. So that's why I think that this metric is like, it's not super helpful actually, because even while we saw Bitcoin dominance climb up from even December 2022 lows, there were many altcoins, again, the newer ones, that went fucking moon mode and beyond. So as always, you know, if you're going to be playing the altcoin market, it's probably best to just look, or it's not probably, it is fucking best to be looking at whatever individualistic coin you want to be looking at versus Bitcoin. Anyways, we can look at another nonsensical chart, Mr. Total 3 over here. And in Total 3, okay, that's, again, a very bizarre read right there. Again, I'm guessing it's just a bad print from TradingView. You know, long term, is the reversal real right here? Yes. Short term, does it just moon mode from here? Probably no. Or, well, I guess it did. You know, I guess it did. But I guess you get what I'm saying. This happened today. It must be a bad read. It must be. But ultimately, you know, same thing kind of here, right? Oscillating or even just maintaining anywhere above about 450 billion is going to be considered pretty fucking good for the long term. Again, very likely a macro low right here. It's going to take its time. But Total 3 chart is completely different than Bitcoin dominance chart, for example, just because this represents altcoins versus their USD counterparts and the strength there. And so again, we are getting signals of long-term macro bottoming. It's just, that's not an immediate signal of like moon mode from this exact moment, unless if you're looking at bad prints on TradingView, which fair enough, you know, I guess it is in there, to be fair. But again, I would be expecting, you know, some sideways, maybe a little bit of downside as well from this particular region, resulting in a higher low. But higher low, in addition to this higher high right here, above range highs, I mean, it's very likely to continue on to the upside. But I still suspect that you're going to need to see a strong Bitcoin to move first to the upside and carry this one up, and then, you know, and then you see the rest of the market follow, basically. Anyways, other than that, are we good to look at some Bitcoin action over here? Sure, let's do that. I'll just talk to myself through this one. Again, as we went over in yesterday's video, Bitcoin is actually poised for a nice bounce within this region in the more sort of medium term, maybe this next week or two. In the very, very short term, does Bitcoin come back down and retest the lows? I mean, it kind of already is, I guess, of this particular formation, but I don't know if that's like super useful or super valuable to be going over right now. You know, could come back down and retest like just below 42,000 bucks. That's not concerning at all. I'd be looking at that as a bit of a fake out before Bitcoin does put in a more intermediate bounce. Again, bounce areas of interest to the upside, still somewhere between 44,500 to 45,500 bucks. But I want to reiterate my overall stance here that, or my overall invalidation that if all of the analysis that we went over, especially in last Saturday's video, and I think again a little bit in Monday's video, that Bitcoin's most likely to come down from this region and try for that monthly higher low, you know, in these next 2 to 3 months here, I'd say, kind of correlated with the halving as well. You're probably first going to see a bounce into this region, but that will be wrong if you see this bounce, assuming that we even get the bounce, but I do think it's quite likely, based off the setup that we referenced yesterday. If that bounce reclaims 46,500 bucks, if you see Bitcoin start to close, especially daily timeframes above 46,500 bucks, it's fucking bullish. It's gonna very likely see 50,000 plus, and who knows where that next top comes in around. I don't fucking know. But we'll get to that bridge when we get to that bridge. And until then, you know, still tentatively might look something like this is kind of what I'm thinking, and then takes us into like the very end of January / early February, I think is most likely, and that's when we'd probably see a march down. But this is starting to look a lot more like distribution at the highs in this mid $40,000 level. But typically speaking, if it is going to be distribution, we're likely to see this next bounce right here, and it just needs to be rejected below, especially 46,500. And that would be the next sort of major puzzle piece that I'd be looking for to kind of confirm all of the ideas that we've been looking at, again, especially from that Saturday's video. That was a big one in the sense that Bitcoin's more likely to come down into the mid, maybe even low 30s, maybe even upper 20s. maybe even upper 20s. And try for that monthly higher low, and then resume the overall upside markets, in the second half of this year. So realistically, probably in for a little bit more boring times in the more near term, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Anyways, I am 15 minutes into this video. I didn't realize that I was running for this long as of right now. I won't go over the setup in this case. You can reference yesterday's video for that because it is still very much relevant, just, taking time to play out. And yeah, one thing's right there. As always, I want to wish you the best of the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow for a little bit of Thursday action, the most likely day for Bitcoin to actually go to the downside.